We all know the ache, those moments when we pour our heart into someone who barely acknowledges our pain, who resists change or fails to meet us where we are. It's like carrying a weight that no one else sees, suffering quietly for someone who may never truly value us. But what if the key to ultimate freedom isn't in holding on to that pain or trying to fix the unfixable, but in letting go, deeply and unshakably? This video dives into the essence of Stoicism, exploring how this ancient philosophy teaches us to accept what lies beyond our control and to fiercely protect our inner peace and dignity. We'll unravel why suffering for someone else's unwillingness to change only drains us, and how true transformation starts from within them, not us. As lovers, friends, or humans, we have no duty to repair or coax change from those who aren't ready. We'll explore powerful strategies to break free from the chains of expectation, how to read actions over empty promises, embrace emotional distance as an act of self-care, and honor silence as a clear message, not a mystery to be solved. This is about reclaiming your self-worth, recognizing that you deserve relationships that nurture rather than drain you, and understanding that your happiness cannot hinge on validation from others. By the end, you'll see that real emotional freedom comes from rooting your satisfaction and well-being within yourself, not hinging on someone else's actions or feelings. This path of detachment, grounded in Stoic wisdom, doesn't close your heart. It liberates it, allowing you to love more genuinely, openly, and authentically than ever before. Ready to stop suffering for someone who won't change and start living with a freedom that only true acceptance can bring? Let's begin. 5 Stoic ways to never suffer for anyone. 1. Accept what you can't control. 2. Release the need to fix others. 3. Observe actions, not words. 4. Practice emotional distance as self-care. 5. Find freedom in detachment and inner validation. If this is making sense to you so far, and you're feeling that flicker of recognition, please take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who might truly benefit from hearing these ideas. Your support helps these timeless principles reach those who are seeking greater peace and clarity in their lives. We've already touched upon the profound liberation that comes from accepting what you can't control and releasing the futile need to fix others. These are foundational steps, creating the necessary space for you to reclaim your energy and focus. But what happens once you've laid down the burden of expectation? What practical wisdom guides your path forward, especially when you're still navigating complex relationships and the lingering hope for change? This is where the Stoics offer us another invaluable compass, learning to trust the undeniable truth of actions over the fleeting illusion of words. C. Observe actions, not words. In our desire for connection, for validation, for the world to conform to our hopes, we often become masterful self-deceivers. We hear what we want to hear, interpreting ambiguity as potential and promises as guarantees. We cling to declarations of love, apologies, or vows of change, even when a steady stream of contradictory behavior tells a different story. This isn't just a modern phenomenon, it's a deeply human one, and one the Stoics were keenly aware of. Epictetus, that remarkable former slave who became a powerful Stoic philosopher, famously advised, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." While he was speaking to the practice of Stoicism itself, this principle extends far beyond the realm of philosophy and directly into the heart of our relationships. It's a stark reminder that true intention, true character, and true commitment are not articulated. They are demonstrated. They are lived. Think about it. How many times have you been promised the moon, only to be left standing in the dark? How many times has someone sworn they would change, only to revert to old patterns within days or weeks? In the quiet aftermath of such disappointments, we're left not just with the pain of unmet expectations, but often with a profound sense of confusion. We engage in mental gymnastics, crafting elaborate narratives to explain away discrepancies, desperate to preserve the image we hold of the person, or perhaps, more accurately, the image we wish were true. The Stoic approach to observing actions is not cynical. It is profoundly realistic. It's an exercise in confronting reality head-on, stripping away the layers of wishful thinking and self-deception. It asks us to become keen observers, not just of what is said, but of what is done consistently over time. Words are cheap. Actions carry a cost. They require effort, intention, and consistency. They are a tangible manifestation of someone's true priorities and values. Consider the person who repeatedly apologizes for their hurtful behavior, yet never alters that behavior. Their words might soothe you temporarily, offering a fleeting hope of reconciliation or change. But their actions, the persistent repetition of the offense, scream a louder, more honest message. I am not willing to change, or at least not willing enough to prioritize your well-being over my current habits. To cling to their words in the face of their actions is to choose a fantasy over reality, and it will inevitably lead to repeated suffering. Or take the friend who always promises to be there for you, but is consistently absent in your moments of need. They might express their love for you, tell you how important you are, and promise to make more time. These words are comforting, perhaps even beautiful. But when the phone calls go unanswered, when they're too busy when you're in distress, or when they consistently bail on plans, their actions reveal the truth of their availability and commitment. Your inner peace cannot be built upon the shifting sands of their empty assurances. This isn't about judging others harshly. It's about being rigorously honest with yourself. It's about protecting your own peace by making decisions based on reliable data, the data of consistent behavior. The Stoics understood that we must be careful with our assent, the act of giving our mental agreement to something as true. If we assent to words that are contradicted by actions, we are essentially assenting to a lie, and we open ourselves up to unnecessary turmoil. How do we cultivate this discipline of observing actions? First, practice patience and watch for patterns. One isolated incident or one emotional outburst might not define a person, but a pattern of behavior, a consistent theme in how they show up or don't show up over time, is an undeniable signal. Don't be swayed by grand gestures that are inconsistent with daily habits. True character emerges in the mundane, in the everyday choices, not just in moments of crisis or dramatic pronouncements. Second, detach your emotions from the initial interpretation. When someone says something heartwarming, it's natural to feel good. When they say something hurtful, it's natural to feel pain. But the Stoic practice encourages us to observe these reactions and then step back. Ask yourself, does this statement align with what I have observed to be true about this person's character and choices? If there's a disconnect, let the actions be the primary source of truth, not the words. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. It means you don't allow emotions to cloud your judgment of reality. Third, set boundaries based on actions, not promises. If someone promises to respect your boundaries, but consistently violates them, the boundary isn't truly set. A boundary isn't something you say, it's something you enforce through your actions. If someone's behavior is consistently draining or disrespectful, your action might be to limit contact, adjust your expectations, or refuse to engage in certain topics. This isn't punitive, it's protective. It's an act of self-respect that says, I value my peace too much to allow words alone to dictate my experience. By prioritizing actions, you gain immense clarity. You stop living in a state of perpetual what if, or maybe next time. You start to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. This clarity, while sometimes painful in its initial revelation, is the bedrock of true peace. It allows you to make informed decisions about your relationships, your time, and your emotional investment. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of hoping against hope and suffering for a reality that simply isn't present. You are not obligated to believe empty words. You are only obligated to yourself, to your inner truth, and to the protection of your own mental and emotional well-being. Trust your observations. Trust the consistent narrative of behavior. It speaks volumes more than any eloquently phrased promise ever could. Practice emotional distance as self-care. Once you've honed your ability to observe actions and accept the reality they convey, the natural next step is to protect your inner sanctuary. This brings us to the crucial Stoic practice of cultivating emotional distance. Now, before any misconceptions arise, let's be absolutely clear. Emotional distance is not about becoming cold, uncaring, or apathetic. It is not about cutting people off entirely or building walls around your heart. On the contrary, it is a sophisticated form of self-preservation that allows you to engage with the world more effectively and to love more genuinely without sacrificing your own well-being. The core of Stoicism lies in the dichotomy of control, understanding what is within your power and what is not. Your judgments, your reactions, your choices. These are entirely within your control. The actions, opinions, emotions, and choices of others, these are emphatically not. To become entangled in the emotional turbulence of another person, to allow their choices or their refusal to change to dictate your inner state, is to surrender your most precious possession, your inner peace and autonomy. Emotional distance, therefore, is the practice of consciously separating your internal well-being from the external circumstances and the behaviors of others. It's about acknowledging that someone else's drama, negativity, resistance, or inability to meet you where you are does not have to become your drama, your negativity, your resistance, or your burden. Think of it like this. You are the captain of your own ship. Other people are other ships, sailing the same ocean. They might encounter storms. They might sail off course. They might even deliberately collide with other vessels. As the captain of your ship, you can observe their trajectory, offer assistance if it's genuinely helpful and safe, but you cannot control their course. To allow their storm to capsize your ship, or their poor navigation to dictate your direction, would be a catastrophic failure of leadership of your own life. In modern life, this practice is more vital than ever. We are constantly bombarded by the emotional states of others, through social media, news cycles, demanding colleagues, or complicated family dynamics. Without a conscious effort to create emotional distance, we can become sponges, absorbing every ripple of negativity, every unmet expectation, every flicker of disappointment. This leads to burnout, anxiety, and a profound sense of powerlessness. Let's explore what emotional distance looks like in practice. It's not indifference, but discernment. You can empathize with someone's struggles without internalizing them. You can listen attentively without feeling responsible for their happiness or their choices. This means distinguishing between genuine compassion, wishing them well, offering support within your means, and unhealthy enmeshment, feeling their pain as your own, believing you must fix it. A Stoic understands that true help comes from a place of strength and clarity, not from being dragged down into another's chaos. It involves mindful engagement, not avoidance. You don't necessarily need to cut people out of your life to practice emotional distance. Sometimes it means changing the way you engage. For a perpetually negative friend, it might mean steering conversations away from their complaints and towards solutions or lighter topics, or limiting the duration of your interactions. For a family member who thrives on drama, it might mean politely declining to engage in gossip or debates and excusing yourself from escalating situations. You are present, but not porous. It requires strong emotional boundaries. This is perhaps the most crucial aspect. Emotional boundaries are the invisible lines you draw to protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being. This might involve saying no to requests that overextend you, to discussions that are consistently circular and unproductive, or to taking on responsibilities that are not yours. Consciously deciding how much time and energy you will allocate to certain individuals or situations, especially those that are consistently draining. Refusing to ruminate when someone says or does something that typically triggers you. Instead of replaying it endlessly in your mind, acknowledge the thought, observe your reaction, and then consciously redirect your attention to something productive or peaceful. Taking things personally is more about them and their internal state than it is about you. It's about redirecting your focus inward. When you create emotional distance from others' issues, you free up immense mental and emotional bandwidth. This newfound space can then be directed towards what is within your control: your own thoughts, your own actions, your own character development, your own goals, and your own well-being. Instead of obsessing over why someone won't change, you can focus on strengthening your own resilience and cultivating your own virtues. This is where your true power lies. Think of the Stoic concept of preferred indifference. Things like health, wealth, reputation, and even the affection or approval of others are preferred, but ultimately indifferent to our core happiness. Our happiness, or eudaimonia, comes from living virtuously and in alignment with reason. When you practice emotional distance, you acknowledge that while you might prefer others to be loving, supportive, or rational, their failure to do so does not and cannot diminish your inherent worth or disrupt your inner peace unless you allow it to. This practice of emotional distance is not a sign of weakness or cowardice. It is an act of profound self-respect and wisdom. It allows you to maintain your composure, your clarity, and your compassion, even in the face of external chaos. By refusing to be swept away by the emotional tides of others, you become a steady lighthouse, able to guide yourself through any storm. You become more resilient, more centered, and ultimately more free. This freedom is not found in controlling others, but in mastering yourself and fiercely protecting your inner world. Find freedom in detachment and inner validation. We've journeyed through understanding what we can control, releasing the burden of fixing others, learning to trust actions over words, and protecting our peace through emotional distance. These steps pave the way for the ultimate liberation, finding profound freedom in detachment and grounding your entire sense of self-worth in inner validation. This is the zenith of Stoic wisdom for never suffering for anyone. Often, when we talk about detachment, it conjures images of coldness, apathy, or an absence of love. But true Stoic detachment is the antithesis of this. It is not about ceasing to care, it is about ceasing to cling. It is the deep understanding that your happiness, your worth, and your inner peace are entirely self-generated, not contingent upon external people, circumstances, or their approval. This perspective doesn't diminish your capacity for love. It purifies it, allowing you to love more genuinely, more freely, and less conditionally. The suffering we experience for someone who won't change often stems from a deep-seated belief that our well-being is intertwined with theirs, or that their change is a prerequisite for our own happiness. We seek their validation, their acknowledgement, their transformation as a mirror to our own worth. If they don't change, if they don't appreciate us, if they don't love us back in the way we expect, we interpret it as a reflection of our own inadequacy or failure. This is the heavy chain of external validation, and it binds us to a life of perpetual anxiety and disappointment. The Stoics taught that true eudaimonia, a state of flourishing, living well, and inner contentment, comes from living in accordance with virtue and reason, which are entirely internal. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, constantly reminded himself that nothing external is good or bad. It is our judgment about these external things that creates our suffering. This includes the judgments we make about other people's behavior, and the judgments we seek from them about ourselves. Detachment as true freedom. Detachment in this Stoic sense means releasing your happiness from its dependence on external factors. It means recognizing that you can wish someone well, offer support, and even deeply love them without needing them to fulfill a specific role in your life, validate your existence, or change according to your desires. It is the understanding that their choices are their own, and your peace is your own. Consider the person who waits endlessly for an apology that never comes, or for a loved one to finally see the light and appreciate them. Their happiness is held hostage by an external event that they cannot control. Detachment breaks this hostage situation. It declares, I would prefer an apology, or for them to change, but my well-being is not dependent on it. I choose to find my peace, regardless. This doesn't mean you condone their behavior. It means you refuse to let it define your emotional landscape. This isn't an easy path. It requires a conscious, consistent effort to rewire deeply ingrained habits of thought and expectation. We are social creatures, and our brains are wired for connection and approval. But the Stoics ask us to develop a higher faculty, our reason, our capacity to choose how we interpret and respond to the world, rather than being passively carried along by its currents. Inner validation as unshakable self-worth. The cornerstone of this freedom is inner validation. This is the radical, empowering truth that your worth is inherent, non-negotiable, and not granted by anyone else. You are worthy simply because you are a rational human being, capable of virtue and reason. Your value doesn't fluctuate based on a promotion, a compliment, a relationship status, or someone else's opinion of you. How do we cultivate this unshakable inner validation? 1. Know your values and live them. The Stoics believed that our true good lies in our character, in striving for wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. When you consciously identify your core values and consistently act in alignment with them, you build an internal reservoir of self-respect. Your actions become your truest validator. When you act with integrity, you don't need external applause. Your own conscience affirms your worth. Practice self-compassion and self-acceptance. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a struggling friend. Recognize your imperfections without letting them diminish your overall worth. Understand that mistakes are opportunities for learning, not condemnations of your entire being. This inner dialogue is crucial. Are you your own harshest critic or your most steadfast ally? 3. Focus on your sphere of control. Constantly remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. Direct your energy and attention to what is genuinely within your power. Your efforts, your attitude, your responses. Every time you catch yourself worrying about someone else's opinion or trying to force their change, gently bring your focus back to your own choices and actions. This conscious redirection strengthens your inner locus of control. 4. Embrace solitude and self-reflection. Spend time alone, not to escape, but to connect with yourself. Journal, meditate, or simply sit in quiet contemplation. What are your strengths? What are your aspirations? What truly brings you peace? The more you understand and appreciate your own inner landscape, the less you will seek external validation to fill perceived emptiness. 5. View relationships as opportunities for shared growth, not completion. When you are rooted in inner validation, relationships transform. They cease to be desperate attempts to fill a void or to find someone who will complete you. Instead, they become opportunities for shared experience, mutual support, and independent growth. You can love others more purely, without the heavy burden of needing them to define you or make you whole. You enter relationships from a place of fullness, not scarcity. This detachment, grounded in inner validation, doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you love with an open hand, not a grasping fist. You allow others the dignity of their own choices, their own paths, their own timelines for change. You remain compassionate, understanding that their struggles are real, but you refuse to make their struggles your own, especially when they show no desire to alleviate them. This is the profound freedom the Stoics offer, the freedom to be truly yourself, unburdened by the need for external approval, unshaken by the vicissitudes of others' behavior. It is the freedom to love deeply without attachment, to care without being consumed, and to live a life dictated by your own values and reason, rather than the ever-changing whims of the world around you. Your happiness is not a delicate flower, vulnerable to every gust of wind from another's displeasure. It is an unshakable fortress built upon the bedrock of your own virtue and self-worth. And in this unshakable fortress, you will find a peace so profound, it truly allows you to never suffer for anyone who won't change, because your suffering was never truly about them. It was about your mistaken belief that they held the key to your own fulfillment. That key has always been and will always be within you. So what chains of external expectation are you ready to sever today to claim your authentic freedom? How will you begin to cultivate that unshakable inner fortress of self-worth starting right now? The journey begins with a single conscious choice: to reclaim your power, embrace your inner validation, and live a life where your peace is fiercely protected by you, for you. If this conversation resonated with you, if it sparked a new way of thinking, please take a moment to give this video a like, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and consider subscribing to the channel for more insights on Stoicism and living a richer, more intentional life. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's your biggest takeaway from today's discussion? Share it in the comments below. Your insights and questions enrich this community, and I look forward to reading them. Thank you for joining me on this journey towards profound emotional freedom.